Hey everybody, it's Chris, and there is a new Unearthed Arcana, the Unearthed Arcana Subclasses update. This came out last Thursday, so just a few days ago, and I don't know why they released it the same week that they released a pretty substantial new book, Heroes of Faerun, but they did, so I figure I better go through it. This is going to be a single video going over the whole thing, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you the changes from the original, give you a little bit of insight in terms of, how the numbers work out, if they're more or less powerful, the kinds of overall changes that these subclasses saw. And then I'm going to give you an opinion on the entire document. So let's get started. This is not too long. There's not too many subclasses here. So these are all subclasses that have been printed previously, and they're, looking at updating them. So let's see what they've made changes to. We begin with Path of the Spiritual Guardian Barbarian subclass. This is an update to the Path of the Ancestral Guardian Barbarian, so there's a slight name change there. Not sure why the change, but whatever, doesn't really matter. Let's look at the features that they get. We're going to start here with Spiritual Protectors. There it is up on your screen. Your rage summons spectral warriors to your aid. While your rage is active, when you hit a creature with a weapon or unarmed strike, it becomes the target of the spirits, which cause one of the following effects of your choice. Distract. Until the start of your next turn, the target has disadvantage on attack rolls against targets other than you or another barbarian who has this feature. Protect. Till the end of your target's next turn. The next time it hits a creature other than you with an attack roll, that creature has resistance to the damage dealt by the attack. And Strike. The target takes an extra d6 damage, which can be acid, cold, fire, force, lightning, or thunder damage. Your choice. You would always choose force there, I would think, or pretty much always, unless maybe you're facing vulnerability or something. So these are the changes. First, this used to be called Ancestral Protectors, if that matters. And Ancestral Protectors only activated after your first hit, though Ancestral Protectors worked with any attack, not just weapons or unarmed strikes. Now, I don't know what other attacks you'd be making as a barbarian who is in rage. Ancestral Protectors also imposed both the distract and protect portions of this feature here. Now it just does one, but it's on every attack. So if you have extra attack, you could attack a creature twice and impose both of these. Or you could attack two different creatures and impose one of these on two of them. You couldn't do that kind of thing before. So distract, for example, being able to do it on more than one creature on your turn, definitely good. Then the duration used to expire early of Ancestral Protectors if your rage ended. Now, Spiritual Protectors, if you've distracted an enemy, it's going to remain distracted till the start of your next turn, whether you lose your rage or not. I don't think that's really a big deal, but I thought I'd mention it. And the strike effect here at the bottom, where we can actually do extra damage. This is brand new. You couldn't do that before. So in some ways, this is better. Like, you can potentially distract multiple enemies instead of one. In other ways, it's worse because you have to pick one thing that happens when you hit instead of getting multiple things. And so you have to choose which effect to apply. The mechanical change here, I think, provides you an incentive to make more attacks. So, if you take things like Polearm Master or you're using two-weapon fighting, you get a little bit more benefit out of this. Now, I was thinking, does Strike make it do as much damage as a Berserker Barbarian? And no, it doesn't. I mean, you can do as much extra damage as a Barbarian, but in order to get that extra damage, you have to sacrifice some of the things you can do for your regular damage in order to get it. So overall, it's not going to match the Berserker Barbarian for extra damage, but Strike is still a nice alternative when you don't need Distract or Protect. Next, we have Spirit Shield. This is level 6. Your guardian spirits can provide supernatural protection to those you defend. While your rage is active, when another creature you can see within 30 feet of you takes damage, you can take a reaction to reduce that damage. To determine the amount the damage is reduced by, roll a number of d6s equal to your rage damage bonus and add them together. And this is basically unchanged from the original. It scales slightly differently. They both started at 2d6. They both got to 46 eventually. The levels they got to them slightly altered, but in the end, it's pretty much the same feature. Then we have Consult the Spirits, level 10. I'll bring that up. And it says you gain the ability to consult with your guardian spirits. When you do so, you cast the Augury or Clairvoyance spell without expending a spell slot or needing material components. Rather than creating a spherical sensor, this use of Clairvoyance invisibly summons one of your guardian spirits to the chosen location. Wisdom is your spellcasting ability for these spells. Once you cast either spell in this way, you can't use this feature again until you finish a short or long rest. So, no change at all to this feature. It was exactly the same in the original version. And I didn't like it in the original version, and I don't like it now. First off, if you're raging, you can't cast either of these spells, because you can't cast spells when you're raging, and they haven't put an exception here. Second, Augury is a second level spell and a ritual, so most casters who have it will be casting it without a spell slot regardless. And Clairvoyance is a fourth level spell, and it's pretty circumstantial. And here you can cast one of them per short rest, and you're 10th level. I mean, your spellcasters are getting way more at 10th level without subclass features than we're getting at 10th level in total. Barbarian gets nothing else at level 10. You've gained an entire level, and that's what you're getting. It is not good. So I don't know why they didn't change that. Then we have Vengeful Spirits. This is the final feature for this subclass. When you make an attack roll with a melee weapon as part of the attack action and roll an 18 to 20 on the d20, you can make one additional attack roll with the same weapon as part of that action. Once you use this feature, you can't do so again until the start of your next turn. I gotta think that it will happen a reasonably frequent amount of times. 18 to 20, that's 3 different results on the d20. We're going to be attacking recklessly pretty much all the time. So assuming that advantage isn't canceled by anything, we're going to be rolling twice. And then we're making multiple attacks. We're making at least 2 attacks, maybe more. So I would think that, yeah, this is going to trigger a lot. And so we're going to get an extra attack. So that's pretty good, I think. Now, the old feature said that when you use Spirit Shield to reduce the damage of an attack, you force the attacker to take force damage equal to the amount you prevented. So that would happen all the time, right? You would expect that one to happen pretty much every round, and then you would have to use your reaction, and you would deliver that 2d6, eventually 4d6 damage. I'm not sure which one is going to do more damage. It really depends. I think it's comparable in terms of the amount of damage it does. I will say I prefer this one, this new version. I think it's going to be more fun, but I don't think it's a power increase. And so Path of the Spiritual Guardian in total, I think is fine. It's not much different than the original. These are mostly just kind of tweaks. So the original was fine. I didn't mind it. I didn't like the level 10 feature, but of course they didn't even touch that. But I didn't think it was a bad subclass. And so if they reprint it this way, it's still not going to be a bad subclass. It'll be fine, but I'm not sure why this is here, right? This seems like a waste of space in this document when it is almost the same subclass, right? Like, does this really require an entire playtest for? I would think you would need at least one significant change. Then we have Path of the Storm Herald. This was in fact, both of these were Xanathar's Guide to Everything subclasses. So we start with Storm Aura. And it says, whenever you activate your rage, choose Desert, Sea, or Tundra. You extend an aura in a 10-foot emanation originating from yourself for the duration of your rage. The aura has an effect that activates when you enter your rage, and you can activate the effect again on each of your turns as a bonus action. Your aura's effect depends on the chosen environment, as detailed below, and if your aura's effect requires a saving throw, it's based on your Constitution modifier. And we have 3 here. We have Desert, Sea, and Tundra. So we'll start with Desert. When this effect is activated, roll a number of d4s equal to your rage damage bonus and add them together. Each creature in the aura must succeed on a dexterity saving throw or take fire damage equal to the number rolled. You can choose one creature you can see in your aura to automatically succeed on the saving throw. Then we have C. When this effect is activated, roll a number of d6s equal to your rage damage bonus and add them together. You can then hurl a bolt of lightning at one other creature you can see within your aura. Target makes a dexterity saving throw, taking lightning damage equal to the number rolled on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. And Tundra, it says, when this effect is activated, roll a number of d4s equal to your rage damage bonus and add them together. You can choose one other creature you can see within your aura to harry with ice spirits. Target must succeed on a strength saving throw or it subtracts the number rolled from the next damage roll it makes before the start of your next turn. Okay, so the original of this is very similar, but it only lets you switch environments when you leveled up. So when you got to the subclass, you picked Desert, Sea, or Tundra, and that's what you got every time you raged. And you could change it when you leveled up, but not otherwise. But are these good? Right? Like, the originals were terrible. They were terrible. And I look at Desert. The original did 2 damage, scaling up to 6 eventually. There was no saving throw. The original did not allow you to avoid friendly fire because there was no saving throw. But there's not much more damage here. Like, I would expect about 3 damage when we first get this, still scaling to about 6. So less than a point of damage overall in increase. And a whole bunch more saving throws, right? We have a whole bunch of extra saving throws for very little effect. Then we have C. The original did a d6 lightning damage, which would be less than 2d6, which you get now. But it eventually scaled to 4d6, which is the same as this one will eventually scale to as well, because rage bonus damage scales exceptionally slowly. Then we have Tundra. The original gave temporary hit points to allies in the aura. It was 2 at first, and then eventually 6, which of course is terrible. The update should prevent a little more damage, but not much. Though I will mention that since temporary hit points don't stack with each other, the value of removing damage over giving temporary hit points, I get that. But, we're doing a strength saving throw to prevent an effect that reduces damage by a very small amount. So this is it's still not a good feature. It was never a good feature, and the only real significant improvement here is that we can choose the aura when we rage, but unless those auras are decent, it doesn't really matter. Then we got Storm Soul. All right, it says, the storm grants you benefits even when your aura isn't active. The benefits are based on the environment you chose for your storm aura the last time you entered your rage. So we have Desert. You gain resistance to fire damage as a magic action. You can touch a flammable object that isn't being warded or carried by anyone else and cause the object to start burning. Little spelling mistake there. It's and not fanned. We have C. You gain resistance to lightning damage and you can breathe underwater. You also gain a swim speed equal to your speed. And Tundra, you gain resistance to cold damage. As a magic action, you can touch water and turn a 5-foot cube of it into ice, which melts after 1 minute. This action fails if a creature is in the cube. All right, so the original. We had Desert, which did the same thing, except it also said you didn't suffer the effects of heat exhaustion, which, not a big deal. But technically, there's a nerf, a slight, tiny nerf. C, the original did the same thing, except the speed was 30 feet instead of your movement speed. Your movement speed should eventually be higher than 30 feet. In fact, it already will be by the time we get this feature. So technically a tiny buff to see. Then Tundra, the original did the same, except it said you also didn't suffer the effects of extreme cold. Again, I don't think that really matters. And there was no restriction regarding a creature being in the water being frozen. So that's a new restriction, so that's a nerf. So Storm Soul is basically the same, with mostly little slight nerfs to it. Then we have level 10, Shielding Storm. You can use your mastery of the storm to protect others. Each creature of your choice within your storm aura has the damage resistance you have from the Storm Soul feature. No change there. It's the same feature. And then we have Raging Storm. The power of the storm you channel grows mightier, lashing out at your foes. The effect is based on the environment you chose for your storm aura. We have Desert. Once per turn, when a creature you can see fails its saving throw against your storm aura effect, you can cause it to start burning for 1 minute or until your rage ends. Burning creature takes an extra d4 fire damage at the start of each of its turns. So 2d4, because it's 1d4 normally from burning. So an extra one makes it 2d4. Then we have C, whether the target fails or succeeds on its saving throw against your storm aura effect, a bolt of lightning leaps from the target to another target of your choice, which must be within 30 feet of the first target. The new target makes the same dexterity saving throw as the first target, I assume taking the damage if they fail. And Tundra, once per turn, when a creature you can see fails its saving throw against your storm aura effect, you can cause it to take 2d4 cold damage, and its speed is halved until the end of its next turn. Okay, so the original version with Desert, it did fire damage to a creature that you hit with an attack. Basically, you hit them, they made a dexterity saving throw, or they took damage equal to half your barbarian level. Then with C, the original gave a strength or be prone when you hit with a creature with your aura with an attack. And Tundra said that you chose a creature in your aura, they made a strength saving throw, and if they failed, they had a speed of 0. So Tundra just took a huge nerf, right? Big nerf. I mean, it does a tiny bit of cold damage, but hardly significant at 14th level. But instead of changing the target speed to 0, they half the speed. That's not even close to the same thing. But what we have here is a subclass that got really tiny tweaks, and there's no point reprinting this subclass if all you're going to do is tweak it, because it's a bad subclass. No one plays it, right? It is a forgotten. I had forgotten it existed until I saw it here, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember there was that lousy subclass back in Xanathars that everyone ignored, and here it is again. They're going to reprint it, and it's just going to gather dust again. So next we have the Cavalier, and the Cavalier is a fighter subclass from Xanathars. Not super popular, but I've seen it played a couple times. It works somewhat similarly to the Ancestral Guardian Barbarian, like the one we went over, where it has protective features, though they're not quite as potent as the Ancestral Guardians are. And yeah, so it was always on the weaker side as a Paladin subclass, but I don't think that was the main problem with it. Here's the main problem with the subclass, and we can read it right here in the description. Cavaliers excel at mounted combat. Let's just stop right there. Cavalier doesn't excel at mounted combat. They get one feature related to mounted combat. It is a ribbon, and it provides effects that don't matter for mounted combat hardly at all. There's no real benefit here for taking Cavalier if you want to play a mounted character. In fact, Cavalier is a terrible choice. You buy a horse as a Cavalier, you can get on it, and it's going to die. So, saw this, super excited, because Cavalier was a failed subclass. It just didn't do what the theme said it would do. So we start with bonus proficiency. You gain proficiency in one of the following skills of your choice: animal handling, history, insight, performance, or persuasion. Alternatively, you can learn one language of your choice, so a ribbon, and it was in the original, so no change. Born to the saddle. You have advantage on saving throws made to avoid falling off your mount. So there is one instance in the rules where this could happen. If your mount is forcibly moved and not killed, right? So somehow pushed but not killed outright, then you have to make a saving throw to stay on your mount. That saving throw has a DC of 10. Okay? We have advantage on that saving throw now. And the reason I explain that saving throw to you is because you've probably never made it, because it doesn't come up. The other thing it says is if you fall off your mount and descend no more than 10 feet, you can land on your feet if you don't have the incapacitated condition. So the rules say that if you fall off your mount and land no more than 10 feet, you fall prone unless you make a dexterity saving throw with a DC of, you guessed it, 10. So a DC 10 dexterity saving throw, and you get this as well. In addition, mounting or dismounting a creature costs you only 5 feet of movement rather than half your speed. Doesn't really come up, right? If you're mounted, you generally want to stay mounted most of the time, or you're going to ride up to the place where you want to get dismounted. So using half your movement isn't a problem. So this is a ribbon that almost never comes up, but it is the only thing that the original Cavalier got to help them with mounted combat. So like I said, they weren't a mounted combat subclass. They were themed that way, but it was a failed promise. So no changes there, right? No changes to that feature whatsoever. Then we have Unwavering Mark, and it says you can menace your foes, foiling their attacks and punishing them for harming others. When you hit a creature with a melee weapon, you can mark the creature until the end of your next turn. This effect ends early if you have the incapacitated condition, you die, or someone else marks the creature. While it's within 5 feet of you, creature marked by you has disadvantage on attack rolls against creatures other than you. In addition, if a creature marked by you hits a creature other than you with an attack roll, you have advantage on attack rolls against the marked creature until the end of your next turn. So the original said that when a creature marked by you did damage to anyone else, you could make an extra bonus action attack on your turn with advantage, and you got a damage increase on that attack equal to half your fighter level. But that special attack could only be used a number of times equal to your strength modifier, refreshing on a long rest. The other stuff in this feature is unchanged. So I'd say Unwavering Mark is a bit easier to use here. I don't know if it's more powerful, but, it's a resource we don't have to track, I guess. And then we get to Warding Maneuver. You learn to fend off strikes directed at you, your mount, or other creatures nearby. If you or a creature you can see within 5 feet of you is hit by an attack roll, you can roll a d8 as a reaction if you're wielding a melee weapon or a shield. Roll the die, add number rolled to the target's armor class against a triggering attack. If the attack still hits, the target has resistance against the attack's damage. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your Constitution modifier, and you'll gain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. And no, this will not save your horse. Right? The disadvantage on attacking a marked creature is not going to save your horse, and Warding Maneuver is not going to save your horse, because a horse has terrible hit points, and a horse has a terrible armor class. And creatures attack more than once. Does it help other party members? Yeah, a little bit. I don't know if this is a great reaction. In fact, it's not a good enough reaction that it should really have limited uses. So that's a criticism. And it's not changed. It's exactly the same as it was in Xanathar's. Then we have Hold the Line. Creatures provoke an opportunity attack from you when they move 5 feet or more well within your reach. When you hit a creature with an opportunity attack, the target speed becomes 0 until the end of the current turn. This is a pretty good feature. It's exactly the same as the original, but it's a pretty good feature. Then we get Ferocious Charger. During the first round of each combat, you and your mount's speed increase by 10 feet, and your movement doesn't provoke opportunity attacks for that round. When you move within 5 feet of a creature this round, that creature must succeed on a strength saving throw, or you either push it 5 feet away or cause it to have the prone condition. Creature makes this save only once during a turn. And the original said that if you moved at least 10 feet in a straight line before attacking, and not just on the first round of combat, but any round, the creature you hit would have to make a strength saving throw or be prone. And so pretty underwhelming, certainly, especially with topple mastery and stuff in the game now. I would say this is an improvement, I think. This isn't a great feature, right? It's once per combat, and it's not that impactful, but I'd say it's better than the original. And then we get Vigilant Defender, and it says in combat you get a special reaction that you can take once on every creature's turn except your turn. You can take this reaction only to make an opportunity attack, and you can't take it on the same turn that you take your normal reaction. Not bad, not a bad feature. Exactly the same as the original. Don't know why Cavalier's here. They didn't address the one problem with Cavalier was not addressed. It wasn't really nerfed, wasn't really buffed. It's just being reprinted with mostly meaningless tweaks. I don't know what they want us to play test or react to here, other than say, I really like the original Cavalier, so I'm glad to see you're not changing it very much, I guess. Not worth putting in a document, I don't think. Finally, we're going to have a subclass that actually has reason to be in this document. Okay? We have Warrior of Intoxication Monk. So this replaces the Drunken Master Monk, and I definitely think Drunken Master was a better name. I think most people online are saying the same thing, but let's be real, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they call it. Call it a Drunken Master if you want. They didn't change the thematics, right? The name is irrelevant. So we have bonus proficiencies. You gain proficiency in the performance skill, or if you already have it, you gain proficiency in one skill of your choice from the skills available to monks at level 1. You also gain proficiency with brewer's supplies if you don't already have it. So this is mostly unchanged. This is a ribbon, of course. The one thing they added is if you already have the performance skill, you can pick a different skill instead. They should do this every time a subclass gives you skills. They should let you pick something else. I don't know why they do it sometimes and other times they don't. I don't get it. But I'm glad they did it, even though I don't think most monks are going to have the performance skill, but it doesn't matter. It's the principle. Thank you for including that. Do that every time. Don't do it some of the time. Then we have Drunken Technique. You twist and turn quickly as part of your flurry of blows. Whenever you use flurry of blows, your speed increases by 10 feet until the end of the current turn, and your movement during that time doesn't provoke opportunity attacks. No change. No change from the level 3 Drunken Master feature. And this is weaker than all the level 3 Player's Handbook monks. Then we get to level 6, Tipsy Sway. You can move in sudden swaying ways. You gain the following benefits. Leap to your feet when you have the prone condition. You can stand up by spending 5 feet of movement rather than half your speed. Redirect attack. When a creature misses you with a melee attack roll, you can spend 1 focus point as a reaction to cause that attack to hit one creature of your choice other than the attacker that you can see within 5 feet of yourself. So this feature also is unchanged from the original Drunken Monk, except this was the only level 6 feature that the original Drunken Master got. Now, this is the ribbon at level 6, okay? And it is a ribbon feature. It's not a good feature. The Drunken Master was a terrible subclass. So I am glad to see that this is now being treated as the ribbon it is, because we've got a feature at level 6 that doesn't replace anything. It's brand new. So this is just an addition to the subclass, and that gives this subclass a reason to actually be released to players to evaluate and provide feedback on. So let's evaluate it. Whenever you finish a short or long rest while you are holding brewer supplies, that's no problem. You can use that tool to magically produce one magical beverage, chosen from the following options: Cinnamon Dragon, Heavenly Spirit, or Refreshing Dip. The beverage appears in a bottle or cask, and the bottle vanishes when the beverage is drunk or poured out. If any beverage remains when you finish a short or long rest, the beverage and its container vanish. And it says, drinking a magical beverage. Only you can gain the benefit of drinking the beverage. You must drink at least a pint of the beverage before gaining its benefit. You can spend 1 minute drinking a pint of the beverage. You then gain the benefits of the beverage for 1 hour as described below. So I should say, what I think with the drinking a beverage, they talk about 1 pint. With the creating a beverage, they just talk about a bottle. So assuming you have more than a pint in a bottle, I guess you have multiple uses of drinking the beverage and gaining these benefits. But it's not really clear about that. If the bottle contains multiple pints, not only do they need to say that, they should say how many pints it has in it. So that we have some idea of why you're measuring it in 1 pint here and not in this other place. But I think the way it is written, you can drink the beverage more than once. Otherwise, I'm not sure why they would bring up pint only for drinking a beverage and not for creating the beverage. But we have 3 options. Let's take a look at them. Sorry, weird cut here. I screwed up reading this one the first time, but Cinnamon Dragon, you can take a magic action to exhale toxic fumes in a 30-foot cone. Each creature makes a dexterity saving throw, And on a failed save, a creature takes fire damage equal to 4 rolls of your martial arts die and has the poison condition until the end of its next turn. On a successful save, a creature takes half as much damage only. Now, I'll mention that there's another monk, of course, that can do a breath weapon, and that is the Way of the Ascended Dragon. For them, it's also a 30-foot cone, but it only does 2 rolls of the martial arts die and doesn't impose the poison condition, though it only replaces 1 attack of your attack action. And, of course, you get 2 attacks. So you're giving up 1 attack to do Cinnamon Dragon, though you can still do your Flurry of Blows or your bonus action attack with it. I think this is a little better than what the Ascended Dragon gets. I mean, 2 additional rolls of the martial arts die and the poison condition is probably worth giving up 1 more attack. So I think that's a good deal. Then we have Heavenly Spirit. You gain resistance to psychic and radiant damage, which are both pretty rare. Radiant especially. Psychic a little more often. I would think this is one you wouldn't use very often unless you knew you were going to face those damage types. But, I mean, then you just choose something else. And then Refreshing Dip. Whenever you regain hit points, you regain additional hit points equal to a roll of your martial arts die. That's pretty good, I think. Just drink a healing potion, you get an additional martial arts die, or somebody does one of their uses of Or Vitality on you, additional die. I think this is pretty good. I think all 3 of these are decent. Heavenly Spirit is circumstantial. I wouldn't use it a lot, only if I knew I was facing those damage types. The other 2, I would definitely use. If I thought I was going to be facing issues with fire damage, then I would probably just use Refreshing Dip. Otherwise, I think Cinnamon Dragon is a pretty decent increase to your offense. So yeah, all 3 of these are pretty good. They last for 1 hour unless we enhance them. It says, when you create a magical beverage, you can expend 1 focus point. When you do so, the benefit's duration extends to 8 hours. Another reason I'd like to know how many pints are in the beverage, because, 1 hour is definitely going to get me through the combat, and if I can just drink it again at the end of the combat, then I probably would save my focus point. Otherwise, 8 hours will definitely get you through to your next short rest. All right, so weird cut again. Then we get to level 11, Master Brewer. So it says you learn more complex flavors. The following beverages are added to your Mystic Brew options. Blue Lightning. Whenever you take a reaction that isn't making an opportunity attack or casting a spell, you can make 1 unarmed strike as part of that reaction. And Drunkard's Luck. You gain Heroic Inspiration if you don't already have it. In addition, you can give yourself Heroic Inspiration when you roll initiative without it. Now, I do wonder if Blue Lightning and Drunkard's Luck are actually any more powerful than Cinnamon Dragon, Heavenly Spirit, and Refreshing Dip. Maybe. Blue Lightning, I think, is the more powerful of the 2, simply because a monk uses their reaction all the time. They tend to use it on deflect attack and eventually deflect energy. So I think that one's pretty potent. Then we have Drunkard's Luck, which I think is decent. Heroic Inspiration is good. I don't know if this is a super powerful upgrade at level 11, but let me tell you about the original. So the original Drunken Master had Drunkard's Luck at level 11 instead of Master Brewer. That allowed you to spend 2 key points to cancel disadvantage on 1 test. Awful. Absolute trash. So this is better than that, for sure. And then we have level 17, Intoxicated Frenzy. You make an overwhelming number of attacks against a group of enemies. When you use Flurry of Blows, you can make up to 3 additional unarmed strikes with it, provided that each strike targets a different creature this turn. And this is exactly what it was in the old version, and it is awful. What it says is, we can eventually make up to 6 attacks with our Flurry of Blows using this, but all 6 have to be against a different target. And technically speaking, if your DM is a stickler, you can't even move between them, because a bonus action is not the attack action. We can move between attacks of the attack action, because the rules say specifically under the attack action you can do so. Doesn't say anything about that under bonus action. So there's nothing in the rules supporting moving around, but even if your DM lets you move around, this is just, it's totally wiping out any focus fire you have. So this is a terrible feature, has always been a terrible feature, and they didn't change it at all. It's exactly the same. When it comes to the Drunken Master or Intoxicated Warrior or whatever you want to call it, the parts of this that actually deserve to be printed in a playtest, I think are pretty good. I'm pretty happy with the new features. My only disappointment with this subclass is the stuff they didn't change. I wish they had changed level 3. I wish they had changed level 17. Now, level 17 maybe doesn't matter because, we're not going to get to level 17 in most campaigns, so we're not going to be playing with Intoxicated Frenzy anyway. But nevertheless, if you're a designer and you're going to reprint the subclass, there's no reason to include a level 17 feature that's garbage and not change it. That doesn't make any sense. I will say that of all the subclasses up to now, though, this is the subclass that deserves to be here. And we get our final subclass. So this is the Oathbreaker Paladin. And I mean, the big change with Oathbreaker Paladin is that they're saying here it's going to be reprinted as a player character option. And technically speaking, it was never a player character option. It was an example given to the DM in the Dungeon Master's Guide of a possible homebrew subclass for NPCs. That's where Oathbreaker comes from. So, if you didn't know the origin of the mechanics for Oathbreaker Paladin, that's what they are. They were never, ever printed as an official subclass. They were never, ever printed as a player option. So they're talking about making it a player option. So that's a pretty big change. Then I notice it says, so at the DM's discretion, a paladin of any level who violates the tenets of their oath can lose the benefits granted by the original subclass and gain the features of the Oathbreaker subclass instead. That was always true. So it did allow that before. Alternatively, a paladin can choose this subclass at level 3 based on the character's backstory or of falling from grace. So that would be new. You wouldn't be able to have picked this subclass before. Then they say, these paladins often share the following tenets. I'm not even going to read the tenets. What are tenets doing here? Like, if I don't follow these tenets, what happens? Do I become the Oathbreaker? Oathbreaker, I would think by definition, shouldn't have tenets. Now, I get they're going for evil paladin, and so they're going to do evil tenets. But if you're going to do an evil paladin, maybe it shouldn't be Oathbreaker. Right? Maybe do something like Blackguard or something like, or Anti-Paladin or something like that, because it makes no sense at all for an Oathbreaker to have an oath and rules they have to follow. But let's go through the mechanics. All right, so at level 3, we're going to get Conjure Undead, and this replaces Control Undead that the original had. As a bonus action, you can expend one use of your Channel Divinity to summon a number of undead equal to half your Charisma modifier, round up, minimum of 1 undead summoned. So, I mean, you should be able to get 2 undead right away, and eventually 3. Each undead appears in an unoccupied space you can see within 30 feet of you, and is a type of your choice, skeleton or zombie. So, not powerful undead, but, it's more creatures on the battlefield under your control. It's good for action economy. The undead are under your control for 1 minute, after which they dissolve to ash. And I should mention that if you control a skeleton or zombie through the Animate Dead spell, you have to use a bonus action to command them. Here you don't, so that's nice. Each undead is an ally to you and your allies. In combat, the undead shares your initiative count, but it takes its turn immediately after yours. Thank you. No different initiative roll. That's... everything should take its turn immediately after yours if it's a pet. It obeys your verbal commands, no action required by you. And if you don't issue any, it takes the dodge action and instead uses its movement to avoid danger. I think this is pretty good. Now, I should mention what it replaced, though. The old version gave a 30-foot emanation burst, and any undead in that area had to make a saving throw or they were controlled for 24 hours. And creatures with a challenge rating equal or greater than the Oathbreaker's level were immune. And that could be very powerful. It also could be useless most of the time, right? If you're not fighting undead, useless. If you're fighting powerful undead, useless. You were looking for that niche case where you had a bunch of undead that were lower challenge rating than your level. Then it could be very good. But most of the time you just couldn't use it. Then we have Dreadful Aspect, also level 3. Immediately after you cast Divine Smite, you can expend one use of your Channel Divinity to channel a burst of magical menace. Each creature of your choice in a 30-foot emanation originating from you must succeed on a Wisdom saving throw or have the Frightened condition for 1 minute. A frightened creature repeats the save at the end of each of its turns, ending the effect on itself on its success. So the old version, you also chose creatures within that 30-foot area, and they had to make a save or be frightened with a duration of 1 minute and no additional save until it was more than 30 feet away from the paladin. However, it was cast as an action, or used as an action. I guess it's not cast because it's not a spell. Here, it says after you cast Divine Smite, you can just use it. So it's essentially no action, right? Because we're going to use Divine Smite anyway. We're a paladin. We have Divine Smite. Heck, we have a free Divine Smite. We're going to use Divine Smite. And so no action cost when we do that, and then we get this burst. I think that's a big upgrade, and I think it's big enough that even giving the additional saving throws at the end of each of the creature's turn still makes this better. All right, and then we have the Oathbreaker spells. So we get Hellish Rebuke, Witch Bolt, Crown of Madness, Darkness, Fear, Summon Undead, Blight, Phantasmal Killer, Contagion, and Steel Wind Strike. Quite a few changes here from the original. So we used to get Inflict Wounds, Animate Dead, Bestow Curse, Confusion, and Dominate Person. Those are gone now. But new here is Witch Bolt, Fear, Summon Undead, Phantasmal Killer, and Steel Wind Strike. I don't know if it needed to be changed, right? Like the spell list was probably fine before. It's probably fine now. They took away some good spells, but they added some good spells. I think it's about the same, right? So change for change's sake, I guess. And then we have Aura of Hate. All right, so this one got a really big change. Okay, it says, when you, as well as any fiend or undead in your aura of protection that is an ally, hits a creature with a melee attack, that attack deals extra necrotic damage equal to your charisma modifier. So the old version, let's start with the tiny stuff that changed. It increased melee weapon damage instead of melee attack damage. So we now can increase the damage from things that aren't melee attacks. So let's say we have a Summon Fiend spell up or a Summon Undead spell up. And, that creature is in our aura and makes attacks. Well, it's not making melee weapon attacks. It's making melee attacks. So they will benefit from this. They wouldn't have benefited from the old one. Also, this one does necrotic damage. The other one increased the weapon damage. So if the weapon before did slashing damage, it would do more slashing damage. And then the big change. So the big change is that it now specifies that a creature benefiting from your aura has to be your ally. And it didn't do that before. And this was the reason I always argued that Oathbreaker wasn't a good subclass, even if your DM allows it, because one thing you fight in D&D are bad guys, like fiends and undead. Fiends and undead come up all the time. There's all kinds of campaigns built around fiends or undead. So the idea of being attacked by a fiend or undead in a Dungeons and Dragons game is pretty common. And what you're doing is you're giving a bonus to damage to your enemies that are attacking you. An anti-feature, right? An anti-feature. So although it was very nice to have that increase to your own damage, that vulnerability is ridiculous. Getting rid of that is the biggest change they could have made to Oathbreaker. And fixes the problem with the Oathbreaker Paladin. So that's great. Supernatural resistance. You gain resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. This is the standard upgrade, where before it gave you resistance to non-magical weapons, and now it's just bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing. Everything in 2024 has that upgrade. But it's an upgrade. And then Dread Lord. As a bonus action, you can imbue your aura protection with Unholy Gloom, granting the benefits below for 10 minutes, or until you end them. No action required. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. You can also restore your use of it by expending a level 5 spell slot. No action required. And we have Darkness. Magical Darkness fills your aura protection. You and your allies in your aura of protection can see within this magical darkness. Fear. Whenever a creature with a frightened condition starts its turn in your aura, that creature takes 4d10 psychic damage and Shadow Strike as a bonus action. You can make a melee spell attack, shaping the gloom excluding from you into a blade that targets one creature in your aura protection. On a hit, the attack deals necrotic damage equal to 3d10 plus your charisma modifier. So the old version was terrible. It was an action to use and lasted 1 minute. And that by itself wrecks it. The old one also could not be used with a spell slot if you want to use it again, though you never would. The old version created dim light, not darkness, but the old version cloaked you and your allies in shadow, or allies within your aura in shadow, and that caused disadvantage on anyone relying on sight to hit them. Now, we're going to get that effect to some extent with the darkness that only we can see through. But nevertheless, I mean, creatures have true sight at this level, or most of them do. It's just really, really, really common at high level. So I don't think you'll get that disadvantage with his new version all that often, or advantage from the darkness. But this is still a substantial improvement. I mean, the bonus action and duration make a huge difference. And the original just was not good because of that. So I think this looks okay on a capstone, even though darkness I don't think is going to be effective all that often. The rest is here. It's okay. It's not a bad capstone. And the Oathbreaker overall, I think it's pretty good. They changed the one thing that needed to be changed. The level 7 aura was a problem, and they fixed the level 7 aura. The rest of the stuff here is really mostly tweaks. Now here's what I don't get. Why did they bother releasing this? They released an official product the same week. 2 days later, they release an Unearthed Arcana, which has got to draw attention from their new official release. And this is mostly a nothing burger. I mean, we have a couple features on the new Drunken Master or Intoxicated Warrior that are worthy of evaluation by players and feedback and filling in a survey. The rest of this, it's tweaks. So why print this? And now I can get back to looking at the actual new official content. Till that time, I'm going to sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.